We're entering a world where everyone is going to be an investor. Everyone is an investment. All transactions are tracked, and every interaction is a transaction. Not necessarily meaning that money changes hands, but every interaction in the metaverse is logged as a transaction, and that's signals intelligence. And that's very important to train AI. Does that have to be a bad thing? Not necessarily, but we're entering a world where some entities have access to huge dashboards of human behavior, and that's really interesting. And a lot of amazing innovation can happen. However, there's also a lot of amazing manipulation that can happen. Look at the work of Stafford Beer. He's the father of cybernetics. Cybernetics means to steer. It's not like a neutral, romantic technology term. It comes from a Greek word for helm. And his approach was that the way you control things is you don't impose it upon people. You just subtly steer them. So there's AI that will be trained on large sets of data from our transactions and interactions. And that has a lot to do with the oncoming proliferation of digital wallets, which are digital IDs, cryptocurrency, which is signals intelligence. It's not magical freedom money. And my approach here is not so much raising my fist. Oh, hello, that was my cat. Not so much, she wants to go outside, but if I open the door, it will be loud. So I can't open the door. I can't open the door. What was I saying? I'm not here to just be like an old-timey, like angry AM talk show host about these things. It's more about what is our place in this world, and what does this world want from you? Oh, sweetie, I can't let you outside because it will be so loud. She wants to go outside so bad. You probably get my point. Oh, sweet. The saddest meow. Here's another study about results of a universal basic income program. They seem to be phasing out that word. So this is guaranteed basic income, but also you might find the word eventually, like the term community currency, and the soundbite about the results is that it was overwhelmingly beneficial. We're going to start to see these stories more and more, I think. And obviously I'm not against universal basic income, but it doesn't have to be, it might also be sold as like no strings. However, you will have it attached to a digital wallet. So instead of like the CBDC conversation, this will now be community currency. It's crypto. You must have a wallet, and then that can be tracked. So there is like the premise that like you must have a digital ID for security purposes. Your data is safe, but then depending on what else you need or what access to other services or areas or anything, you may be compelled to share your data. There are pros and cons to this, obviously. The world is being steered into a place where every interaction will be tracked. You will live in the metaverse. You already do. It's social media, and this is a part of it. So just know what it is. Enjoy the money. Journalists at The Atlantic, and this is a quote, have demanded that The Atlantic stop prioritizing their bottom line and champion The Atlantic's journalism. But that's not the world we live in right now. Everything, it should be your objective too, to make as much money as you possibly can, because the more money you have, the less you can be tracked and the less you're subject to potential steering of the great cybernetic global superorganism. They need everyone to participate. So the more money you have, the less you'll be subject to that. But every big news headline hooks into a narrative, and this one is about NFTs, which are the future of property law. The Atlantic has a licensing deal with OpenAI, but this also draws attention to, if you're a blogger, what's your licensing deal with the AI companies? You might have to join some sort of content licensing collective in order for your work to not just be scraped by AI. Hey, I know you want to go outside, but I can't let you out right now. Or you just have to not care about that. You live in a time of they're trying to build a global superorganism, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. But eventually everything's going to crumble, and the world's going to be even more different than you could possibly imagine. So the Japanese government ID, it's like a government smart card called the My Number card. This program began in 2015 And there's been a lot of, like, it's been very bungled. And it was supposed to make, this is the quote, it was supposed to improve public service delivery. But now the story is, oh, that was so terrible, so we must require an app on your smartphone to verify that you're you. And this isn't an accident, in my opinion. Obviously, I can't prove that. This will be the refrain moving forward to moving everything to blockchain also, is security. Security to protect you. And it's not, like, wrong. In some ways, it's not wrong. In some ways, it could be helpful. But watch these stories pile up. They already have on this channel. A robot dentist has performed a procedure on a human, and something that should take a couple hours, it can do in about 15 minutes. And it starts by using, there's like a handheld mouth scanner that maps the entire inside of your mouth and also can identify cavities. And now I want you to free write on all the different versions of robot and computing super fast things that can be done without a human, and share them with me in the comments. Bloomberg is saying that Venmo and Zelle might not be free for much longer because there's a distinction that's up in the air of whether or not things like Venmo and Zelle are like cash. So if you lose your cash, that's not any bank's problem. But if you lose your digital wallet or you get robbed, then that is the responsibility of Venmo and Zelle, or whoever is the steward of your wallet, unless you like get tricked into giving your credentials to someone. And this is a much bigger conversation than the Venmo and Zelles of the world. This will hook into digital wallets. Like, this needs to be figured out now so that in the future, like, all the wonderful blockchain crypto cash thing that people like Robert F. Kennedy are promoting, it doesn't need to be promoted, it's happening anyway. Everyone just wants you to like love it as a rebellious technology instead of be like, oh, this is being imposed upon me. Anyway, those things are sold also as like payments will be so easy and so cheap. So this discussion is priming, it's paving the way for that. And all of this stuff is really gonna come much more quickly and sharply into focus around this time next year, like in about 11 months. And you can see that happening with the news on the Andreessen Horowitz crypto page. A lot of their articles right now, as of this recording, have to do with infrastructure and regulation because they know what's coming. They're investing in it and building it to be like at the forefront. So this is about a company. This is about a company that makes it so that anyone can create a virtual energy or like a virtual power plant. And it makes all of like energy and power a data game. So all the devices in your house are logging all the data, and something that you'll do if you're being invested in, you will sell your data to the power plant for energy credits. This is one really great example of how in the future, the more money you have, the less you're subject to the digital control grid, because you won't need to sell your data, your power usage data, to the grid in order to get credits for your energy to be cheaper. You'll be able to pay full price and not participate in this. So Daylight is a company that is setting all this up so that you can be an energy investor. There are even things that like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has said about everyone's going to be an energy investor. You are. That's what's coming. You don't have a choice. And it's coming in about 11 months. Obviously, again, I am critical of this stuff because of how it has the power to subtly control people and control behavior. And in some ways, there's definitely behavior in the world that requires some control, obviously, but by whom and for what? To what end? And the way that it's marketed is like this. It's like rebellious freedom stuff. And I'm sure there will be, like, some people are going to really benefit from this. Some people who aren't getting much benefits from the non-participatory energy grid credit system that is now, where you just pay your bill and to hell with you. This is going to benefit some people. Some people are going to really like this. And then some people are maybe not going to be so interested in or are going to be more subject to restrictions imposed upon them by having to share their energy data. And I brought this up in a couple of videos ago where like more and more we're getting like the energy conversation, the energy conservation conversation, in a Save the Planet conversation, which there are valid things about that, with like AI is being trained, and that sucks down a lot of power. So you need to save energy, but not like the giant AI companies. They're creating a global superorganism. This is probably a part of how the West will crumble in 2032. This week, are you running? If you're not, then run. Mars is applying to Jupiter in Gemini. Run your mouth. Run a race in a run club. Just run. You have the wind at your sails this week. If you have an objective and you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and it's for good reasons, run. Mars doesn't conjoin Jupiter exactly until next Wednesday, August 14th. But right now, Mars is applying to Jupiter, and there's one caveat. However, there's a disclaimer. Mars and Jupiter are ruled by Mercury, which has just stationed. Mars is applying to Jupiter all like as Mercury is stationing and before the interior conjunction, the middle of Mercury's retrograde, which occurs Sunday, August 18th. So this is the glitchiest part of this is included in the glitchiest part of the retrograde. It's the time between when Mercury stations retrograde and when Mercury conjoins the sun. That time is more retrograde-y than the time after Mercury conjoins the sun on August 18th. So are you running? Run, do it. Some stuff you're probably gonna like going back to, are you doing it for the right reasons? Have you chosen a thing? Is it a thing you choose recently? Because if you're running towards that, the path is going to be more winding than maybe you initially expected. And there might be some things where you're running in the wrong direction and it turns out you need to do something else, or you like wasted a bunch of time. And you can, in my experience, when I've gone towards a thing and I'm like, oh, that's not the thing, sometimes it comes up years later. Like when Mercury retrogrades in that place again. Sometimes it comes up, it's just like slow to come to fruition. So Mercury retrograde is not always the wrong thing. It's not always like you're running in the wrong direction, but it's like that thing, it's not that thing's time yet. You have possibly reached down into like the thick, rich soil of your soul and pulled something out that whose time has not come, but it could come later. So if it turns out that you feel like you wasted a bunch of time this week or next week while you're running, don't worry about it. Eventually, even if it's like in a handful of years, that thing will come up again and you might be very glad that you ran in the wrong direction now. See what I'm saying? So there is no logic in this place and you're gonna be compelled towards like figuring things out triumphantly, but side of that, Monday morning starts out with a bang. The moon squares Uranus. So that's like going to be a little grating, a little harsh, maybe like a rude awakening Monday morning. The rest of Monday is nice, but interesting and with question mark floating above it because the moon moves into Virgo. So the moon is ruled by that Mercury, which is just stationed, and the moon conjoins Mercury, its ruler, which is just stationed, and Venus in Virgo, which is fallen in Virgo. So there's something like nice and understated, and it's not exactly the way things are going to go immediately. It's like an interesting detour unless you were born when Mercury was retrograde and you are in a Mercury ruled year, or you're a Mercury ruled native, or Mercury rules one of your angles. So if you were born with natal Mercury retrograde, you're in a Mercury ruled year, or you're a Mercury ruled native, then Monday might be really important and nice for the long term. So whatever glitches happen on Monday could also be delightful. Tuesday is you're running. The moon in Virgo squares Jupiter and Mars. So first it squares Mars in Gemini, then it squares Jupiter in Gemini. So these are both Mercury ruled signs. You're running. This is the stuff I was talking about a moment ago, where go towards whatever the thing triumphantly. You're going to want to do that. But just know whatever you're up to, it's going to be very slow to come to fruition, or it's not going to be what you think. And you just have to do it anyway. Sometimes it's a part of our reality to have Mercury retrograde. And I also made a Mercury retrograde video, which you should watch. It's a few uploads ago, and it's about this time. So August 4th through August 28th. Also, if you stay up late on Tuesday, past the moon squaring Jupiter at night, if you're up like really late, then the moon is applying to Saturn in the wee hours between Tuesday and Wednesday. So that could be kind of a bummer. Or you might have like expended a lot of energy, just like burned off a lot of energy. Wednesday starts early in the morning with the sun making its open sextile to Jupiter. So the sun conjoined Jupiter back in mid-May. And the resetting, you can watch that. You can find it on my channel. There's like a picture of me with the sun conjoining Jupiter. So you might have to do some Googling, like what does the sun glyph look like? What does the Jupiter glyph look like? Have you seen those two together in a video from May? Excuse me. Then watch that. It talks a lot about the Sun-Jupiter cycle and like the timeline for that. But this is the opening sextile is a benefic aspect classically, and Jupiter is a benefic. It's the greater benefic. This will mark like a milestone in this year's Jupiter journey for you, especially if you're in a Jupiter ruled year or your ascendant ruler is Jupiter, or it's otherwise really important, according to the houses that Jupiter rules for you, those parts of your life, this will mark a not necessarily a turning point, but just kind of like a milestone of like, okay, this is where we're headed. We're off to the races. You might have had some advantages, or even just advantages in the term, not necessarily material, although that can be a thing, like being invested in. You get the money up front, you have to go do the work because they can see your potential. But also, advantages could count as just inspiration. Like you're very inspired to do a thing and you're moving forward. And that inspiration is going to carry you until Jupiter stations retrograde, October 9th. So you're like positioning yourself or whoever, like if Jupiter rules your 7th house, it's someone in your life who's positioning themselves for optimal success. So this time marks, there might be some new opportunities around that, around like whatever was reset around the middle of May. This is like really, here's what we're doing and we're moving towards it. It doesn't have to be building something. It could just be like your own mindset. It just depends on what Jupiter rules in your chart. We also have the Mercury-Venus conjunction on Wednesday. So Wednesday is going to feel nice, but it's a little quirky and a little weird. And that might just be like, in hindsight, you discover that the events of Wednesday were like worthy of an eyebrow raise, or just it doesn't come into being as quickly as you thought, or you think it like dies in the water, but it comes back up a few years later and you're like, oh, I'm really glad I did that. So again, there's no logic in this place. Also, all the planets involved are ruled by Mercury, which is stationed, except for the sun, obviously. But this is a well-positioned sun sextiling Jupiter in Gemini. So there are trade-offs. There are good things and there are questionable. Maybe it's just like you took on a little bit too much. So I guess watch out around this time take a look at whether you're taking on too much. You might need to simplify things now, lest you be forced to simplify things later, or things just like fall off the turnip truck later that you want to keep. And then you're stuck with all this shit that you don't want to be involved in, because that could be a Jupiter and Gemini thing and a Mercury retrograde thing. Mercury retrograde ruling Jupiter and Gemini. The moon also trines Uranus at the end of the day on Wednesday. So there could be like something surprising, a surprising jolt. And Venus, ruler of Taurus, where Uranus being trined by the moon in Virgo, is also in Virgo. So very surprising, optimistic, potentially. If you actively try to find the optimism, you might. Just know that things are weird right now. Just enjoy the moment. You don't have to plan for the future. Or if you are, it might be something that happens in a really long time. Because we also have the moon opposing Neptune. So the moon in Virgo, ruled by Mercury, retrograde before the conjunction, is opposing Neptune in Pisces. So it really will be like, I don't know, you got to just do something fun. Don't try to figure anything out. And then the moon just moves into Libra. So we get something a little different. Mercury is still retrograde. There's still many planets that are ruled by Mercury. So Mercury retrograde is the lord of everything, the underworld lord of everything, but not in the big scary Hades underworld lord way. More of a cheeky monkey underworld lord, underworld page, fucking it up a little bit. Mercury is stationing and I can't talk this week. I'm like having trouble speaking. And the moon trines Pluto in Aquarius. And so all of that happens in the wee hours on Thursday. It's like a complicated Wednesday night, a complicated early Thursday morning. And so most of Thursday really is just the moon in Libra applying to a trine with Mars in Gemini. So we get that Libra is ruled by Venus currently in a Mercury ruled sign. The moon is trining Mars in a Mercury ruled sign. So everything comes back to what is being bungled, what is like the caper that's happening. Are you trying to fix things? Watch my Mercury retrograde video. It's a few uploads back. Are you trying to fix things and it's just making things worse? It might make them worse delightfully so, where you have a fun story to tell about it later. Friday morning, the moon, or afternoon if you're on the east coast of North America, it's the moon trining Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter is with Mars, so you're running, and there's that optimism. The optimism and drive and remember, Jupiter just made its opening sextile with the sun. So this is the mark this time as whatever's going on with the Jupiter-ruled parts of your life. Friday could have something to do with it, because the moon also makes contact with the sun, like in the afternoon on Friday. So Friday is like a reverberation of Wednesday. On Saturday, there's a major change in tone. The moon moves into Scorpio. So that's a little more down and dirty. And it's ruled by Mars and Gemini, ruled by Mercury stationing. So Mercury owns everything, owns the board right now. Most of Saturday is going to be the moon applying to a square with Pluto. So this depends on what your relationship is with Pluto and where it is in your chart and its role in your life. But the moon in Scorpio squaring Pluto, it could be like deeply, wildly thrilling in a dangerous way, but it might have to do with something about what's coming with cybernetics is affecting your ability to take care of your body. It's like there's blue light everywhere and you can't go to sleep and you're not getting your antioxidants. And so you don't feel good and you don't look good. And Venus is fallen in Virgo. And we also have Mercury making contact, or the moon in Scorpio making contact with Mercury in Virgo. So there could be something beneficial. You are trapped in an emotional darkness that you can't write yourself out of even. But there's a thing that I heard one time and it has stuck with me. And when I can remember it, it can help me. It is, you can write yourself out of darkness in 8 minutes. So if you're feeling on Saturday really low and terrible, just set a timer for 8 minutes and just write anything. You can even write, I don't know what to write, and just do it for 8 minutes and see what happens. That's the moon in Scorpio sextiling Mercury in Virgo. And Mercury is retrograde in Virgo, but so that's the best possible zodiac sign for Mercury to be retrograde in. And you'll probably dredge up some deep stuff from there. Maybe you'll make contact with some dead ancestors accidentally and you won't even know it. You'll just like receiving information and you'll go down into the depths of your soul and you'll make contact with the energetic entity that after your body dies will persist beyond your physical body. And that's why Mercury is the psychopomp in mythology. And watch my Mercury retrograde video for more. Sunday is simple and calm and maybe you can take a break. I hope you can take a break. It's just the moon sextiles Venus in the morning. And then all day, this aspect doesn't take place until Monday. It's the moon trining Saturn in Pisces. So it's a Scorpio moon Sunday. It's a serious Sunday, but there is like a dry, quiet, tasking solemnity that feels serene to me. Remember, your Wi-Fi is a camera that can see through walls.